Great. So we are off. Welcome everybody to the Knative Meetup. Today we have a few working group updates. We have some project updates, and we will also have a demo. So I think we're going to go ahead and start with the updates. I wanted to give you all a reminder that yesterday we launched the Knative Steering Committee election process, and this is the first election process for this group. So yay, success. We are opening the nominations for candidates. I sent an email out and I also posted this on Slack. There are two different processes as part of this election. One is the candidacy process and the other one is the voting process. You have more information on GitHub, and I think I will add the link to the agenda in second election process. Okay, someone told me that it was the first one. I thought it was the second one, but
yeah, that was right.
It's the first one for steering, right? Okay, cool. Great. So I think we have an update from eventing working group. Grant, Lionel, and Ahmed. Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. Thanks, Maria. I can start. So the first thing we want to mention here for the eventing working group is that Google launched Google Cloud Run for Anthos events, which is quite a mouthful. But basically, it means that Google has a product now that will install Knative events for you, and it runs the GCP broker and other GCP-specific sources that are all built in the Google/Knative-GCP repo. But otherwise, it's entirely Knative eventing. It's in public preview right now, so it's not quite GA, but you can still try it. So if you're interested, there's a link to the blog post there, and you can find the docs in that post. Now I'll hand it over to Lino.
Yes, thanks. Well, so I did also a link. So same way, same kind of small announcement here. It's like for IBM, Code Engine has been launched as a beta product recently, and there is a little bit of eventing in there, and I added a link in the document. So we support currently two sources. One is the ping source, and another one is a COS source that consume event coming from the IBM object store. Right, so that's for the Code Engine. Maybe we can move on the release. So as you know, the eventing release 0.18 came out like a month ago. So I call this like a stability release. There's not many feature in it. It's we've been fixing a lot of bugs. A lot of work has been done on fixing like flaky test, Thanksville and others. And so really the focus has been like stability and getting to eventing V1 version. Another thing that we've been doing is we split it eventing contrib into multiple sub repository or multiple repo and move the repo over to Knative Sandbox. We've done this for like mostly for maintainability issue, right? It was eventing contrib started to be like not manageable. And one thing I want to say is there's like this misconception that Knative Sandbox is for experimental project. So that's not the case. In there, you will find also, close to production project like the Kafka channel and source over there. So don't have this this impression that it's not like it's not like production quality.
Naming is hard.
Sorry, what?
Naming is hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I wanted to say on these 3 things. So maybe Ahmed, do you want to take on the last one?
Yes, thanks. We have been doing some retrospecting inside the eventing working group, and one of the directions that we want to focus on is collecting feedback from the community, because we've been doing the work so far until reaching V1 based on some initial feedback that we collected, whether from users, from vendors, or from the open source community. And right now we want to revisit whatever we collected before. So we're going to work on the eventing use cases. There is a link in the agenda to the old use case document. It's even marked 2019 because it was the main use case document at that time. We would like to have a shout out to any product involved people or people in the open source community who are interested in product aspects of things to give their feedback on the eventing use cases they want out of eventing. The other document is about the roadmap for eventing and all the eventing related working groups. There is an initial doc that we started. We didn't finish that yet, but also feedback is welcomed. And one of the APIs that are moving towards V1 right now is the sources API. And we wanted to collect the feedback from users who are using the sources about the API shape that you have used so far. If you have any feedback, yeah, please feel free to contact us, whether on Slack or on the issue or during one of our working group calls. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So it sounds like we have some action items for this update. So please provide feedback. I think the eventing working group left a few links to do that, it looks like. Yes. A lot of links. Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other updates from any other working groups? Or any other general announcements that anybody wants to make? Okay, so if you arrive, oh yeah, go ahead, Vikas.
Oh, I was just going to go and say, I think some work has been done there to go and support all kinds of different architectures that folks might be interested in. I think we even now support some RISC machines like ARM and stuff like that. And Matt, do you want to say anything more about that?
Sure. Although I lent Nia my prop, I usually have a little Raspberry Pi I can hold up, but yeah, so Co now supports multi-arch, and the distroless base images that we base most of our stuff on support multi-arch. So I believe that these days our nightly build should be building, there you go. Yeah, Vilay's got one. Our nightly build should be building for AMD64, obviously ARM64, as well as Power and Z. Unfortunately, Envoy only ships official images for now AMD64 and ARM64, but for things like event sources and stuff that can be written relatively standalone, they can run on any of those now. So I've only tried it on ARM, so I would love feedback from folks about Power and Z, but yeah, those should be starting to appear in nightly builds. And if you don't see them, let me know.
I was just going to go and say there's been a lot of work getting all the stuff on GitHub Actions, and that's been super awesome sauce.
Great, thank you so much for these updates. And if you were wondering about what am I talking about with these links, because you arrived a little bit later, I just shared the agenda and you can find all the links to follow up with this update as well. Great, so I think without any further ado, I am going to give the floor to Murugappan, who is going to present a demo.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Hello everyone, I am Murugappan Chetty. I am a principal engineer at Optum, and today I'm going to share my experience building some custom Knative event sources. And before that, let me share my screen. Can you share my screen? See my screen? Okay. So first I want to say what's our association with Knative. Knative, we run it in our premises at Optum, and we support some serverless workloads. This is our setup. So you can find the usual suspects. We have serving, eventing, and for build for Tecton and Prometheus, Istio, and all those stuff. The only additional thing that we have is a set of APIs that we have on top of Knative and Kubernetes, just to make the barrier of entry really simple for the new users who are not familiar with Knative and Kubernetes. And we find a lot of users take advantage of that. Okay, and we are currently in production, running about like more than 500 services. The most of the use cases that I could see are atomic APIs, some automation functions, ETL processing, and popular sources. Since I'm going to talk about source today, Kafka source with Kafka binding, and followed by ping source and sync bindings. We also have some custom resources and some domain-specific resources, which I cannot share, but I'm going to share some of the custom resources that we built. Along with helping run this cluster, I also do some contribution to Knative and regularly attend the client working group meeting and the Hacky Hour on Friday. That's where I get the information about Knative. Okay. So today's demo, I'm going to give it in my Raspberry Pi cluster, and all the build is courtesy the new multi-arch support, and made things really simple. And yes, I could get the Knative contour nightly deployments. The only change that I had to do was, like as Matt mentioned, change the envoy to 116 from 115.1. Okay, so that is the deck that I have. So whatever I'm going to present today, I wrote it as a blog, so it's kind of easy to share than a deck. So let's start. So what is the Knative eventing source? According to the Knative documentation, it's a link between the producer and the sink. Even producer can be anything like a Kafka topic or a Redis queue or a GitHub thing. And then the sink is the one that's addressable resource within Kubernetes. Like it can be a Knative service or Kubernetes service, anything which could be resolved to a URI. And to find the list of addressables, there's a discovery API in the Knative sandbox that you could use to find out the addressables. And you can also here you can see the list of Knative sources that have been already supported by Knative here. There's a Knative dev documentation. So building a source boils down to building the link, which is called adapter within Knative, and how you build the adapter and how you ship it, how you distribute it with your teams. So that is what is like building the event source. And the main job of the adapter is to reach out to the producer, get the events, construct it as a cloud event, and send it to a sink. Why cloud events? There are like a lot of advantages. The main advantage that we could see is like the consumers that we built are interoperable and can be reused. I would, while showing the demo, I'll show an example of that. And so for building this event sources, currently Knative provides like 3 options. One is a controller approach, second is a sync binding approach, and third is a container source approach. Controller approach is the approach mostly used by all the in-house Knative eventing sources, and it is a Kubernetes controller, and These are the components that you'll be building on that: an adapter, a controller, and a webhook. Adapter is the one that's going to produce the events, and controller is one that's going to operate the adapter. Webhook is optional. Suppose if you want to do some validation or some defaulting, you would need the webhook. Otherwise, you don't need the webhook. So building a controller can be a cumbersome process, but fortunately, there's a template project created by Knative called the Knative Sandbox, and there's a Knative sample source in the Knative Sandbox. You can just take this template project and get started from here. It comes with most of the boilerplate code. It also comes with the GitHub workflows and things like that. There's also a sample controller that could also be used. So using this approach, first I built an event source called as GQL source or a GraphQL source. What it does is like GraphQL, as we know, GraphQL Server, as we know, supports 3 operations: querying, mutation, and subscription. Using the subscription option, you can subscribe to a GraphQL Server endpoint. And whenever there's a change in that particular entity, the server sends out that information to the whoever subscribes to it. So the source will subscribe to the GraphQL Server and get the changes. And whenever there's a change, it will push it down to the sink. Using that information, sinks can do some action. I'll also show an example of like how this can be used. So before that, how I built this controller using the sample source controller. Just give some steps. I cannot go into the details, of course. But first step, always in the API section, after defining the version, go and define the types that you want. And then along with that, there are some information about the lifecycle events and all these things you can create. So once you're done with that, you just need to change the boilerplate that's already given. Next step is to generate the code. So this part generates most of the code for you. There is a Kubernetes code gen and a Knative code gen, which is going to be used by the reconcilers. And the client, this is the client package, which is going to have all these information that was generated by this code. Okay. So once the code gen is completed, the next thing is to write the reconcilers. And for this also, there's a controller. You just need to confirm to the Knative's controller interface. So once you confirm to the Knative's controller interface and write the controller and the reconciler logic, the advantage that you get is you can make use of the shared main. So this is the entry point, and this is all the code that you have. Everything is like injected by this shared main, and there's a lot of work going on there. So you can go to the Knative package GitHub repository, and you can see what shared main does, like getting the Kubernetes clients config map reading, and then logging construction. There's environmental variables reading. All these things are done by the shared main. And on a side note, the Knative package, it's like a gold mine. There is a lot of libraries there. Suppose we are building something for Knative and Kubernetes, always check out this libraries in the Knative package. There are a lot of supporting functions there. Okay, so that's about the controller. And in the controller, you can see all you're doing is like you're reconciling and then building a receiver adapter. And the receiver adapter is nothing but just a Docker image. So technically, it can be written in any language. You just need the controller just needs a Docker image. But if you have a if you write in Go, you can take advantage of the libraries that Knative gives. Okay, so that's about the controller. Next step that we do is to build the adapter. Similar to the Knative controller interface, there's an adapter interface that they have. And once you conform to the adapter interface, all you have to do is have the start method and then write a logic from here. You can make use of the adapter main. So this adapter main, just like the shared main, has a lot of code being done for you. You just need to follow that interface and then supply that adapter to the adapter main. So this builds the controller and adapter. I have not built the webhook in this process. I didn't need to. So once you're done with these things, the next thing is the easier thing. Like you go inside the config folder, there's a list of YAML files. You have to change it according to your needs. And then you define the shape of your source in the custom resource definition. And once it's done, you can just deploy this custom source in your cluster, and I have already deployed it just to save time. And I'm going to show an example of like how to use this thing. In this example, what I have is like a restaurant web application, wherein the menu information and the hours and the address information are there. And a restaurant manager can come in and change the menu information and address information. Whenever it changes, we want to tweet out these changes. So to do this, I created a GraphQL source. So this GraphQL source will subscribe on two queries. So one is on the menu items and second one is on the info items. And this is the GraphQL endpoint it's going to listen to. And then whenever there's an event that it needs to send, it will be sending to this Knative service. That is our sync. Okay. So I have all these things deployed, and I also have SMBot min scale to 1 so that I want to save time. Okay. So this is the application. So currently, these are the menus that are available. So when a manager comes in, and then if he wants to maybe add an information, right? Like suppose if I want to add ice cream or something like that. Okay, I added a menu information here. So once this is done, the GraphQL server obviously would have sent the subscription to the source, and the source would have sent it to the SMBot. So you would get a tweet on this. Okay. So, and similarly, if I go and remove some information, obviously again that is also going to come up short here. So it says that it's gone. Okay, it's that quick. Okay. And if I have to show it in the backend, so I have this Knative source deployed, and I also have the restaurant. This is the restaurant application, and this is the GraphQL source that was deployed by the server, and I also have the Knative service that's going to process the information and tweet it out. Okay, so this is about the source that I built using the controller approach, and in some cases you wouldn't need the controller approach. In some cases you would want the Knative service itself to send out an event, or a Kubernetes job itself to send an event. In those cases you don't need a controller. So that's when you get the sync binding. You can make use of the sync binding. Sync binding is a custom resource again provided by Knative eventing. It's managed by the Knative eventing controllers, and all it does is like whenever you create a sync binding custom resource, it injects 2 environmental variables into the desired pod specable Kubernetes resource. A pod specable Kubernetes resource is one which has pod spec in its definition, like a Kubernetes job or a deployment or Knative service. And the injection is based on the labels and its namespace scope, if I'm not wrong. Okay, and you can make use of the Knative libraries to fetch the k-sync information and create a cloud events client. So from a developer standpoint, all you need to do is like build your events in cloud event format, and then you can make use of the client that is injected by Knative and then send the information out. So using this approach, built a source called as S3 source. Okay. The goal of this source is to reach out to S3 object store, any S3 compatible store like Minio or AWS S3. It can reach out to that any bucket and get the file that was specified, and it will send each line or multiple lines as a cloud event to the sync. Okay, this will be helpful for enterprises which process a lot of flat files, and in a flat file, each line. Each position in a line has a meaning, and so all they need is to process single lines. So this source would take the job of like going to the bucket and fetching the file and then taking the data and sending it to the sync. Okay, so here the main component is the Kubernetes job. and the sync is getting injected into the Kubernetes job, and that's what is like sending the data out. We chose the Kubernetes job because these files can be really big, like it can be like 5 GB, 10 GB or something like that. So we don't want the Knative service to be running that long. But at the same time, the Kubernetes job is like a one-time, you cannot reuse it, right? So that's where we had a container image that could be run as Knative service. We'll create these jobs on the fly. So based on the bucket information and the file information, it will create a job. It will have some static information also, like the connection information to the S3 bucket. And using these information, the Knative service creates a Kubernetes job. And the Kubernetes jobs will send the information to the sink. So the Knative service has two endpoints. One is to create the Kubernetes job. Second one is to check the status of the Kubernetes job. So once it does this, the Knative service will scale to 0, and Kubernetes job will also complete, will run to completion. Okay. So an example of like how you'd specify how you'd specify is like this is the Knative service definition, nothing special, and this is the image you'll be using. This is a static image you'll be using, and this is the Kubernetes job image, which will be passed as an environmental variable called job spec. This is what this Knative service expects it to come from, and all the connection information will be provided as a secret, and it can take all these configuration items either as an environmental variable or as a query parameter to the Knative service. But all the secret information, all the connection information, you don't want to send it as a query parameter. Maybe you create it as a secret and mount it as an environmental variable. Mainly the bucket information and the file information is the one that's going to keep on changing. That will be passed as a query parameter. Okay. So where does the sync binding comes here? To explain that, I'll take an example. In this example, what we're trying to do here is like process a drug file. Okay, so this drug file is a CSV file. It has a list of drugs based on anatomy, and have two Knative services to process it. One service will split these file based on anatomy and upload it back into the S3 bucket, and second one is just a cloud events viewer. It will show it on the screen. So based on the sync binding labels, we can see how we can send the data to two separate Knative services. That's what I want to show here. So before that, to create, so what it takes to set up this S3 sources, there's a one-time process in each namespace per S3 connection information. So you create all the S3 related information secrets. Next thing is to you need to create a role binding so that the Knative service can create the Kubernetes job. Third one is you need to have Knative eventing core for the sync binding to be injected. And finally, you deploy this S3 source. This is a one-time process. You have the Knative service now up and running. Okay. Now the next step is to create the Knative services which are going to process this drug information. Okay. So this is the first Knative service, which is just a drug processor. As I told earlier, it's going to just split the file based on anatomy and upload it back into an S3 bucket. And as you can see, it will inject into the job which has this label, drug file source. Okay, and it will be sending to this sync. Okay, and second file that I have is like to send CEV's cloud events viewer. It's just an UI, and the match label for this one is like view drug file source. Okay. So I have all these things created already. Now I'm just going to invoke the Knative service to create the Kubernetes job to send the information out. Okay. First, before that, I just want to show. I'm not going to how to run KN with co-publish everything in a single line. So I don't know, I'm not going to wait for it to complete because this will be running in the default namespace. Okay. So you can see there's a co-publish platform is equal to all, or you can have AMD64 or Linux/ARM64, whatever you want. Okay. So once you do this, it's going to build for AMD64, ARM64, all those things. And then also create the Knative service for us. Okay. And now this is creating the Knative service. So I don't want to wait for this to do. This will work. Okay, so okay, first one is I'm going to this is my endpoint to call the S3 file source, and in the query parameters I passed this label drug file source and whatever is the bucket information and whatever is the file information. Okay, and currently you can see here the Knative, the S3 file source service is not running. Okay, so now when I run it, it's going to start, and once this is done, it's running the job now. Okay, and it's calling the drug processor Knative service. Okay, so simultaneously I'll run the view one also. So there's a this is view drug file source. Okay, so this is my S3. Okay, so currently it had just the, now you can see the other files that got created just based on anatomy, and it got uploaded back into this S3 bucket. Earlier only this drug users files were there. Okay, now this is the cloud events viewer. So now all the events that were there got sent to the UI. Okay, so here you can see the advantage of sync binding there. So with, you don't need to change any of the Knative deployments. You don't need to change the destination. You don't need to change the source. Just by changing the labels, you can send it to like 2 different destinations. Okay. Okay, so with the first option and second option, you should be able to do most of the things. But the main disadvantage that I would see with sync binding is like, I mean, that's the way it is. You wouldn't be able to, sorry. So this is the way that you distribute this event source to other people. Like, this is a Knative service, and it's like people can fat finger and make some mistakes here. It's not like there's no CRD to do a validation or something like that. But at the same time, a lot of people don't want to create a controller because they don't have the expertise to do that. But still, if they want to have a controller which is managed by somebody else, then that's when you choose the container source option. Okay, so the only job that you need to do is to create the adapter, and you expect the container source to do the work for you. So for this, I'm going to use the FTP source by vlake. Okay, so this is the container source, and this is the only image. This is the adapter image that it needs, and this is the only responsibility of the user. Everything else is managed by the Knative eventing controllers. You pass all the args that you need to process, and all these environmental variables and args will be created as a deployment, and whatever sync information that you create will be created as a sync binding. Okay, so it's same as the sync binding only, but the Knative eventing controller is going to create the deployment and sync binding for you. Okay, so I don't want to show it in a terminal. There is a UI called Graph by Scott. So you can use this to display all the Knative services and sources within your namespace. And it also shows the connection between the source and the destination, right? So this was the advantage I was saying about cloud events. You can see like 3 connections are there, 3 sources sending information here, and I have a single consumer to consume it. So that is made possible by cloud events. And as I was saying, it creates a deployment and sync binding for the container source. Here you can see there is a container source also pointing to the destination, and also a sync binding for the SFTP watcher pointing to the sync binding. Okay, so what the SFTP watcher does is like it's going to watch for a FTP location, and it will be polling there. Whenever there's a new file, it's going to send the information to the sync. So I have an FTP server within the Raspberry Pi. I'm going to just upload information using the Cloudberry. So once this is done, you should be able to see the events here. It'll take some time for the, yeah, here you can see the information. So whenever the file was added, you can see the information here. So it keeps track of the latest time, and whenever there's a file after this timestamp, it keeps sending it to the Knative sync. And this file, this time is stored in a config map, so you don't lose it when there is a crash or something like that. Okay. So these are the three options that we have to build the source. And as I told earlier, I explained the concept of the source, but apart from this option, if you have a different pattern, you can use that as well. And I've compared these three options. Might be debatable, so I don't know what to discuss here. So you can go through the, I'll share this link, and if you have any comments, please let me. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks for this opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Murugappan. And any questions or feedback about the demo that we want to discuss here as a group?
That was really awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, it was really neat. I really appreciated also the automation for social media. I thought that was super cool. It's like a minimum part, but yeah. Great. So if there aren't, okay, so I think there are some questions on the chat from Alec S. Alec, are you in the meeting? Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Right. I think you showed at the beginning that you were using PyCluster.
Yes.
Were you actually running the demo on PyCluster? I was not sure what was the relation, you know, between.
Yes, I was running this demo in the Raspberry Pi cluster.
Okay, that's even more awesome. I thought you were running it on your laptop. That's great.
No, on the Pi cluster, yes.
This Knative thing is quite good. Yes, it is. And you also share the blog, which we will share on the Knative Twitter as well later on. Great. So if there aren't any other feedback comments, I'm gonna do breakout rooms so that we can all have conversations in like smaller groups. So let me see. I'm gonna pause the recording now. Okay, so we are coming back from our breakout rooms. And I think we should have everybody here now. Yes, awesome. So that was a magnificent demo, and it's really exciting to see more of these presentations where we see Knative apply to an application. And so if you have ideas of a demo that you would like to share with the community, please do so. And I'm sharing here on the chat box the form that you can also find on Slack to submit a demo idea. So please do send that our way. We always love to see new applications of Knative. And I think we also have a survey. So please do let us know what you think about this meetup. And if you would like, you have any ideas or any proposals for change, we are also open to that. And this is the survey link. There we go. Please do fill that out. We read that and we take that into consideration. And as always, thank you for joining the community meetup. I hope you had a great time. I hope that you learned something new. I hope that you met somebody that you didn't know before. And we'll see you next month. Next month, we are doing the community meetup aligned with KubeCon North America. To that end, we are doing it a week earlier. So this will be on the 3rd Wednesday instead of the 4th. And we're doing this to try and get some of the participants from KubeCon to join the meetup as well. So just for you to know, there might be new people joining next month, and I would love to see you all as well. So yes, Vikas, do you have any comments?
No, I was just going to go ahead and say, put a plug in for the Friday Hacker Days. So if you're new to the community joining, you just want to chat, and all of that, there's a very low key event hosted every Friday. It's in a very Europe unfriendly time zone. So if you all want to do it for the next couple of weeks while I'm in the Europe, let me know. We can chitty chat. But if not, then join the other one.
Yes.
Fun.
We kind of run it like a very informal version of this meeting, where it's demos and questions and kind of office hours. So please come join. It's a lot of fun, and usually Carlos comes in with crazy demos.
And sometimes it's just discussion as well about, oh, why did this end up this way?
Yeah, really unstructured. You come make that meeting what you want it to be.
That's awesome. And just in case you haven't seen this yet, the Hacky Hours on Friday afternoon for Pacific time, is on the Knative calendar. So if you don't know where the Knative calendar is, please go to knative.dev/community and you will find it there. And yes, and if you really like Hacky Hours and you're in Europe, consider making yourself the host of Europe-friendly Hacky Hours.
Sounds like
Awesome.
Belay would be happy to set that up if someone wants to vote for it.
Come on, somebody, just give me one. One person join me. Jules, don't leave me hanging.
Awesome.
No?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and see you next month. Bye.
Go team.